On the road is still chipping away at the drive back to Birmingham. Nothing super extraordinary today, just doing it from the broadcast command center. I don't even know what I call this thing. It's really my motorhome here in Little Rock, Arkansas. Not much to say about Little Rock. It is, of course, the home of the Bill Clinton Presidential Library, Trailer Park, and Massage Parlor, all over there on the White River, but really didn't want to hang out there today. Not too hot over here, but let's get right into the weather. And AJ, I hope you're doing well. I may get a little chippy with the signal. I've got the satellite uplink in a very precarious spot. In other words, when Cousin Eddie comes rolling in next to me and parks in front of my dish, you may be playing Girl from Ipanema for a few minutes.
I got you.
If you know what I'm saying. All right, so, yeah, man, let's go with the weather right off the bat. That's probably going to be the thing that affects most people this afternoon. Now, I don't know where it's going to wind up, but we do have storms on the radar already. And if I can pull my little radar up real quick, it looks like the meat of it, so to speak, it should be somewhere around 4 or 5 o'clock for us. And it could get pretty strong. We don't have severe parameters involved in this, but a ton of rain and lightning. They've had a dang near flooding situation over in Atlanta, and I think flash flooding is a potential for us this afternoon in a couple of hours. So, of course, we'll keep you posted. And it being a Friday, there's something about Friday traffic. You get all that beats going, traffic. You got people coming through Birmingham, folks getting off work. Friday, 5 o'clock is always a busy time anyway. And now we've got a major thunderstorm coming through. So just a heads up, if you got running around to do this afternoon, I'd get off the major highways before then, because it could turn into a quagmire. As we get cranked up this afternoon and going, I'll tell you one of the more interesting stories, and I didn't know about this till my buddy Mark reached out and told me about it today. That's the disadvantage of driving all morning and then doing the show all afternoon. I have to do some catching up on what's happening in the news, but reports out this afternoon of some sort of shakeup in programming in Birmingham local television. I'm going to try to recite most of this stuff from memory. I've reached out to some buddies that work in the TV business around town to see if they know what's going on. There's not much to tell even for the employees, but the general thing is this. Next, the company that owns Channel 42, and Nexstar had been in working with CBS at a lot of its stations that it owns around the country. And the bottom line, the simplest way it's been put to me, is Nexstar and CBS had a big breakup. Some of that comes because these networks are charging exorbitant fees for their programming. And to be real with you, a lot of their programming sucks. And there's so many programming options, and it leaves the local stations in a lurch, because these local stations have to try to figure out what to do with the CBS programming that they wind up having to pay for. CBS and all of these networks, by the way, will demand huge blocks of airtime of the local affiliates. It gives the local stations less shelf space, so to speak, to put on local programming, because they're forced to carry all the CBS programming that they also have to pay for and try to turn around and sell. And honestly, they can make more money off the local programming if they do it right. If they know what they're doing and they've got entertaining people and they invest in their talent, which a lot of broadcast entities have quit doing nowadays. The people on your, hey, I'm just saying it right now on behalf of my bros and sisters in this business, the people on your air, including us, including our competitors, are the product. And a lot of these big corporate entities have forgotten that, and they don't really invest in it. They try to squeeze it all down. There have been rounds of layoffs. I don't know how in the hell they're going to run local TV and claim to be local and not have any local talent. But that's just, it's a phenomenon of our day, and now it's hitting the TV cycle. So, but what's happening here isn't that particularly. It's just one of the dynamics they're having to deal with. And so what appears to me has happened is now CBS and the owners of Channel 42 have parted ways, and now CBS has somehow gone over to NBC, Channel 13, always called them Channel 13, and done an affiliation agreement with 13, which means NBC is being kicked off Channel 13. I don't know where NBC's going, and I haven't seen any reporting as to where NBC would wind up. Let me pull up another story on this. A lot of stories are coming out right now. So CBS is switching from Nexstar to Hearst. Hearst, if I'm not mistaken, Hearst owns 13. So they're doing this network affiliation swap. It's NBC out in the cold, and I think 42 is going to carry like the WB. Don't even ask me what is on the WB. Don't even ask me what's on CBS. And it's not a boycott. It's not anything where I'm taking some kind of stand. I just don't watch any kind of local broadcast unless there's like a football game on or something. And that's rare. That's even rarer still nowadays. And that's just my personal viewing habit. Some of y'all have your favorite shows on these stations, whether it be NBC or CBS. And I'm not even talking about their crappy news products. So CBS quickly found a home. And what I haven't seen an answer to, and maybe we'll get that before the afternoon is over, is where does the NBC programming wind up? And I'll give you my own personal memory of how I've lived through this as an employee of one of these TV stations already. When I was back in the 90s, when I was reporting at Fox 6, Fox 6 was not called Fox 6. Fox 6 was just Channel 6 News, and we were, in those days, an ABC affiliate. That was the affiliation we had the whole time I was there. So we filed stories with ABC News and worked with ABC. And so what happened is Fox grew. Fox started buying up local TV stations. So Fox, in fact, in the time I was at Channel 6, we had 4 different owners. We had the original owner, we were putting a holding company, and then Fox bought it. And then I can't remember what the 4th one was. I just remember we go through these ownership changes. In those days, local TV news was king. We were killing it. Our ratings were outstanding. The revenue was up, and they didn't bother us. We never knew or cared about the ownership changes. But then the affiliation thing came up, and that's when ABC got kicked off 6 because Fox bought it and said, nope, you're going to carry our stuff now. You're going to carry our local programming. We own the station, so it was an O&O, as we call it. And then ABC had to have somewhere to go. So what they did was they went over into Tuscaloosa and found this UHF station called Channel 33. They went over to Anniston and found one that was Channel 40. It used to be called WJSU. Maybe it still is. And they combined these 2 towers into one station, and that's why we've got this odd moniker that since then, this has been 30 years ago, everybody around Birmingham's used to saying ABC 3340, and that's because they had to pull 2 different TV stations to serve Birmingham from the east and the west just to give ABC somewhere to go. Now, when they did that, that new entity also kind of busted up Channel 6's news department because now there was an alternative. And for about 30 seconds, I was heading the way that a lot of folks that I worked with back in those days, it was Brenda LeDunn and James Spann and Mike Rada and all these big high-profile folks on Channel 6 bolted and went over to the news station. So it didn't have an effect on local news. It changed up the market a little bit. The main thing was programming and the switch. What I do remember, and these are just old man stories from back in the day, is I was part of they put me on a transition team for us to figure out how we were going to fill that much news, because when Fox bought Channel 6, instead of having just 1 or 2 local newscasts at night, suddenly they had a 4, a 5, a 5:30, and a 9 and a 10 or something crazy like that. And we went from a couple of hours of programming that the news department had to fill to almost triple that, if I remember the time right. It kind of freaked some of us out. It was like they're gonna get the whip out and just drive us in the ground trying to cover all this stuff. But it turned into a good expanded opportunity for them to go long form, create some new shows. And of course, a lot of the talent did stay and continue to carry the load there at Channel 6. So the folks at 33, 40, and 6 have seen this before if they're over a certain age. And so now we got this swap in Birmingham between 13 and 42. And I never worked at any of those stations, but I got friends that work at all of them. So it'll create some confusion. I do know this just from the radio side of the world. Anytime there's a change, you can't assume that viewers are going to just know exactly where to flip the channel. It's just the funniest thing. People have their habits, and when something goes away, they either stay where they were or change their habits. And that's going to be a challenge, I would say, for both of these stations to hang on to viewership and or to acquire viewership from the other station based on this programming stuff. And I'm sure it'll affect news in some way. The other thing is CBS and ABC are kind of on the same, NBC and CBS are on the same schedule, so that'll be different. For 42, if they're carrying WB, for example, They don't have, to my knowledge, network news. So one of the stories I read, and it's probably mostly spin, they were spinning this as an opportunity to create more local programming. And I hope it is, because I think the way we do things and the way a lot of TV stations should do things is invest more in your local folks, make it a real community service, and keep it as live and local as you possibly could. I think that beats the inferior product put out by the networks nowadays, just 100% inferior products that they're putting out right now, which is part of some of this scramble. So, man, it's a story of the economics of the business. It's a story of viewers and habits. But it'll be fun to see this shake out, and I don't know exactly how they're going to do it, but we'll keep up with it. Anyway, that was a surprise move. A lot of changes throughout the whole landscape. We've seen what's happening at ESPN this week. I mean, don't be surprised that it doesn't happen with our business or with any other business that's in this competitive environment. The broadcasters have got to learn how to be competitive. And if you ask me, if I were running the show, it'd be maybe it's because I've also have my own radio show, but you got to invest in the talent. That's what connects with your audience. And a lot of times they try to lowball and cheapen the programming and stretch it out, and you just get a worse product. But we'll see how it goes. You know, it's funny because a lot of these older sort of legacy media operations have seasoned, developed talent. Some of their news anchors, some of their reporters that have already built years of connections with their audiences. This is true, of course, in radio as well. And then sometimes they'll just make decisions to squander that to kind of centralize programming and put some no-name generic people on, or try to fill that with some AI-generated nonsense. And they're just going to lose hearts and minds that way. And you lose hearts and minds, you lose money, and you're scrambling around down the road for another solution. So it's been fascinating watching all this shuffle in the media landscape and somewhat being part of it. I was talking to a friend today that we all came up in the same sort of generation of broadcasting. And I know every person over 50 thinks this way about everything, your music, the movies, whatever your nostalgia is. But we really were lucky to still be around in more of the heyday of local television news. It was more competitive. I think the journalism was better. It was harder to get into these markets. We actually did investigations. We held people accountable. We had standards. We had producers that would vet everything we did, and that challenge made us better. And over time, I've watched these products get watered down, and then they're now competing, of course, it goes without saying, in a massive media landscape of streaming and all of these people addicted to their social media and their little tiny screens. They're not looking up at the TV screens anymore, and especially the younger you get, there are people, I would submit, under 20 years old that don't even know. I would almost bet there's a sizable portion, a large majority of people probably under 25 have no idea that either of these two stations exist. They just don't. It's not their habits. It's not the world they grew up in. So anyway, there's an opening ramble on a very inside baseball story, but a story that will affect some folks in this audience. What I will say is despite the media bashing that tends to happen on shows like this all the time, that's generally targeted a lot of the network stuff and a lot of the complete propaganda that we get from the traditional networks, which is they're also dying because of that. But we've got some sincerely good local people that do journalism in this town and have for years. This is where they live. They really do sincerely care about their product and what they do in their communities. And I hate to ever see that busted up by the shortcomings and the short-sightedness of some of these super large companies. We've got some really good people out there and some super good talent at all of these local TV stations right here. I could start naming people, but then I'd leave people out. And then, of course, I'll turn my TV on sometimes. I have no idea who the hell I'm looking at because I don't watch it much. So, but some of the people that are long in the tooth like me at all of these stations, I wish them the best this shakeup. But I shared that story from the 90s just to say we've seen this before in Birmingham. Now, this also has happened in, I think it was 5 other markets around the country. It was basically this Nexstar CBS breakup, which forced all these stations to scramble into different relationships. And it'll all settle down, and people will what they want to watch and move on. But it's an ever-changing business, and it has been for years. All All right, that'll get us going this afternoon as we get cranked up. Again, storms coming in just a little while, so y'all be prepared for that. If you wind up with roof damage, and we're kind of in that summer lull. We're not in a real tornado season right now. They're always possible when you get severe weather. But we're starting to enter, as we saw with Bertha this week, a tropical system. You never know when some of that weather could make landfall and affect us as we head into fall. And then, of course, we have a secondary tornado season that always comes just before Christmas when winter changes over. If you wind up with roof damage or some kind of issue on your roof or something that needs to be fixed, y'all reach out to my man Greg Nelson at Storm Restoration Roofing. I always try to remind you to remember this phone number. He operates straight on a phone number, so you got to have this number. So if you wind up, here's what you need to know. If you get a missing shingles or a tree on your house or hail damage or one of these sudden things, he can come tarp you up. There'll be a big demand on that business. And you've got a period of time to file your claim. He knows all these rules with your insurance company. He'll get you dry, and then that'll give them time to get the proper claim filed that you're more likely to get covered. He's got finance companies to help you with the deductibles. Man, some of y'all have $8,000 deductibles on your roof, and you have no idea because none of us read the fine print. And then you're shocked by that, but Greg's got finance companies to help you with that. And, of course, he's going to do the best work because they've been around 30 years doing it right. So just know that if you wind up in an emergency. Otherwise, if you just got an old roof and it's time, this is the guy I'm going to put up on top of your house because he is the best. And when you meet him, you'll know what I mean. He's going to be shingling a new addition on my home this summer, too. I hope if we ever get there. The rain has just held us up so much. But Greg's a straight-up patriot and a good man with his whole family working in this company with him, second-generation roofers. I love that. Always love that story. Here's that number, Storm Restoration, 205-542-3531, 205-542-3531, Storm Restoration. All right, y'all, let's do this thing one more time as we head toward a weekend. Be careful out there today. It's going to be stormy. We'll be covering that if there's anything for us to track a little bit later in the show, if these things start bubbling up. And the window on that looks like around 5 o'clock. We'll try to get to it. Floor Tech, concrete coatings, bringing the show as well this hour. I love bragging about this product because I was converted right there on the spot when Kevin demonstrated to me why the most products in the industry that he's in just fail. They yellow, they peel, they fade in the sunlight. And the minute he started describing that, I'd lived through it. I had done an application about, 20 years ago, and it looked beautiful. I was so proud of it. I did everything instructed. I did the install myself, and then it just started looking bad. And I went back and tracked back to some people I knew that were experts on it. I said, did I miss a step? Was something wrong? And it wasn't. It was just the product itself sucked. I felt validated 25 years later. It was like, well, it wasn't me. The products are just inferior. So Kevin and his team at Floor Tech decided to they literally went in the lab and tested all these products and determined the reason they never last and they peel and do all these things because they dilute them down. They thin them out with solvents. How about that? I guess it's a way to stretch out overhead or the product itself, and that just makes the product weak. It'd be like cooking a cake, not putting any eggs in there or putting Clorox in it. I don't know. It's just you got to have the right ingredients if you want to do the good stuff. And so that's what they decided to do. They said, let's get the impurities out of these products and let's create a floor coating for concrete that actually will last. And they stand behind it. Again, it's a full lifetime warranty. Let me try to describe this. They'll bring a little iPad out. It may be a different device, but it looks like a little tablet. And it's got sliders on it. And so you can put your finger on there and slide that thing around until the color is exactly what you want. Then you can decide how much of that flake you want in it. You want a lot, you want just a little bit for just for atmosphere, whatever. But what you'll know is when they come out and do the install, you can walk on it within 24 hours. It's not going to off gas, and it's going to last forever. And they're going to back it up with that lifetime warranty and customize it. You don't just get a color palette with 10 options. You can completely customize what they sell and what they do at Floor Tech. Y'all can get them. You put a K in there if you want to spell it and go online and check them out and get them to come out to your house. They even do their demonstration that they showed me. They'll do it for you too. Floor TEK, floortechcoatings.com, floortechcoatings.com. Well, we got a lot going on today. Not anything super heavy. We're just watching a lot of the same stories that have been floating around this week. But I want to tell you, this Tim Sheehy gave an incredible floor speech about this situation with Iran that's being shared all over media. I heard a little bit of it this morning, was blown away. Then I started seeing other friends sharing it all over the place. And a little bit later in this hour, we're going to share some of that speech. It's only 3 or 4 minutes, but we're going to share that with you. You need to hear it. It's the most convicting argument for what we're having to deal with the Iranians that I think probably I've ever heard. So we'll deal with that and take your phone calls too if y'all want to get in here early. 545-9950, Leland Live, Talk 995. Back here in just a minute. All right, y'all get back in here. Leland Live, talking to M5 All-American Medals. Next up here on the show, this is when I get to brag about my pole barn project. And I'm telling you, I'm just being real, I didn't know All-American existed. And that probably took 3 years off my life because I was figuring it out as I went along and had fits and starts and frustrations with some of the contractors involved. And if you do it more seamlessly with All-American, you're not going to have to deal with anything with that because you've got experts from the very beginning with the design work all the way through the production of the building. It's their factories, it's their material, their designers, their trucks that they bring it to you. They're going to oversee it, do it in a turnkey way. And here's the fun part. They're local, so you've got instant connection with them, talking to actual people on the phone. You've got better customization because they got a whole department just to get that building right for you and produce it correctly for you, and their price is better than some of their big giant corporate competitors from around the country. You'll see TV spots for people that sell steel buildings. Don't go buy a cookie cutter thing from some generic company. Go and see John and the team over at All American. They've been doing this since the 60s. They can build any kind of building you want. Talk to them, whether it's big commercial space or even just something on the private side like a pole barn like I have. It's All-American Metals, aa-metal.com, aa-metal.com. AJ tells me Trump's taking questions, so let's dip into that. He tends to do this late on Friday before he puts a lid on it. And he's going to the White House Correspondents' Dinner. They're doing that redo this weekend. That may be news by Monday. But let's take a listen live, it looks like from the Oval Office.
I consider that the smarter way, but the other's probably the easier way, doing what we're doing. And we can take that to a much higher level if we want to. You know, we're prepared to do that, as you know. We're locked and loaded. We're locked and loaded and ready to go, but we're talking to them. So I think while we're talking, we'll see what comes of it.
And when you say,
I believe, Jeff, they're very serious. Okay. They should be.
And when you say that you're talking, is it Mr. Kushner or Mr. Witkoff, or who's involved in those talks?
Sort of everybody. JD and Marco and a lot of people are talking to him, a lot of people to talk to. It's a big deal. But really, when you get right down to it, it's not very complex. They cannot have a nuclear weapon. You know, very, very simple actually, but it's a big deal. They cannot have a nuclear weapon. If they have even a thought of a nuclear weapon, we will just continue to go at much higher levels. But we are talking right now, and we'll see what comes of it. I'm not, you know, despite what everyone says about the election, I'm not in a hurry. I'm not in a hurry. We have to do it right. Elections take care of themselves. When you know, when I went into Venezuela, everybody was against it. Oh, what are you doing going into Venezuela? And then 2 days later, they said, wow, that's fantastic. A lot of people are saying that with Iran already because it would take them 25 years to rebuild already from what they have. And again, as you know, no Navy, no Air Force, no anti-aircraft, no radar, no nothing. And we, as you know, we just reinstituted the I guess you could go, I call it the iron wall on the water. Nothing gets through. Nothing. Blockade. Nothing gets through. And they sort of have to make a deal. But we are talking to them. I think they're being serious. I think they are being by far the most serious that we've seen them. But that doesn't mean we get there. We'll see what happens. But I always prefer that alternative.
Mr. President,
Did you?
I have an energy question. So, Burgum, you might be able to help with this. So you have criticized windmills for quite a long time. They're very ugly. They tend to use more energy than they actually produce.
That's true.
A lot of people
You've done your homework.
a lot of people in Middle America, they are just so tired of seeing them continue to go up on farmland and stuff like that. Is there any way to? Is our federal government still funding in any way putting these up?
We have. I can speak for Doug, and then I'm going to let Doug speak because he knows the subject. I really do know that subject well. We have not approved anything having to do with windmills. They are horrible. Mm-hmm. They are unsightly. They ruin housing values of people. If you're looking at a windmill or hearing a windmill because they're noisy, you know, they kill all the birds. They kill all the eagles. You know, if you shoot an eagle, you go to jail for 2 years. If you kill an eagle with a windmill, you don't go to jail, and they have hundreds of them laying on the ground. You know, it's terrible. and they're very expensive energy. And they're all made in China, but China has very few windmills. You know, they're made in China, but China doesn't use them for the most part. China actually uses coal, oil and gas. They use nuclear, by the way. They're getting very big in nuclear, I want to tell you, this little group. But they don't use wind. Wind is inconsistent, it's unattractive, it's very expensive. It's probably the most expensive form of energy, so I've been talking about it. We essentially, unless there's a trick reason, we will have hopefully no wind farms approved. We're doing more than anybody ever in history having to do with energy, but I've restricted wind farms, windmills. Take a look at Palm Springs, California, where they have a wind farm. As you enter beautiful Palm Springs, California, it looks like a junkyard. You have old ones, rotted ones, they're falling down all over the place. They don't want to bury it because they say the fiber that the blades are made out of should not go in the ground because it's going to poison the ground. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but if it's not going to go in the ground, what do you do with it? Put it up in the air?
Yeah.
So, good. I see you're not a fan of windmills.
No, I'm not a fan of windmills,
You
Mr.
happen to be
President. I'm
very
very
smart.
passionate about this.
Doug, do you want to speak about that for a
Well, no,
second?
but I would say, yes, President Trump has wisely understood that wind was unreliable, intermittent, dependent on the weather, only existed particularly offshore because of massive subsidies. So not only was it expensive to generate electricity on the grid, it was also expensive for taxpayers because of the subsidies. And so again, President Trump shifting the policy towards energy dominance, which is reliable, affordable, 7x24 energy that's not dependent on the weather. And that includes nuclear, includes hydro, includes geothermal, includes oil and gas, includes beautiful coal, and again, China, 60% of their electricity is coming from coal. Coal was the #1 electric producer in the world 125 years ago, and it was for the last 125 years in a row, and it will be again this year. 126, quite a streak if you're an athletic team that they've won 126 years in a row. But President
we were restricted from using it.
Yep.
Every coal mine was going to be closed down within the next year if we didn't win the election. And it's I call it clean, beautiful coal, because it is. What they do today with coal is amazing. But it is the most powerful, and with that, go ahead, Doug.
Well, as I say, under President Trump's leadership, and then working together as a team across government with Chris Wright, Lee Zeldin, Energy Dominance Council, we've kept open 35 gigawatts of coal this last year, and of that 35 gigawatts was not up this past winter during the cold streak and Storm Fern. We would have seen brownouts, blackouts, and literally people dying in America during that cold weather. So again, President Trump's, the elections matter. When he came in, he turned the direction back towards reliable, affordable energy. Nuclear is a key part of that with these amazing entrepreneurs. And I just would add to this up here. People need to understand, the four guys who are standing up here did not get a government grant. This is private sector. President Trump unleashed capital going back in, billions of dollars of capital going back into the nuclear industry. President Trump understands innovation is the source of American greatness. You get rid of the regulation, you support entrepreneurs, the capital flows, America wins.
And Mr. Secretary, the starting for this nuclear, dominance, what does that look like for the American people out there? Like, what are those first steps that we can see in these coming months and years?
Well, I was just to say, I'll go on, and you can see it right now, because when you take a look across the whole world, President Trump's policies, whether it's Venezuela, whether it's Alaska, whether it's reinstating export for 18 months ago, we had a ban on LNG exports from our country. Now we're the world's largest exporter of LNG. President Trump's policy was, let's sell energy to our friends and allies, keep it affordable at home, so our friends and allies can stop buying from our adversaries. Russia was selling virtually all of the natural gas into Western Europe. 2/3 of that gas has been displaced by America. America has turned those into our customers, supporting our allies. And with Venezuela, as President Trump said, that flowing to our refineries on the South Coast, that's lowering gas prices for America. Unleashing Alaska, which the previous administration sanctioned more than Iran, that's going to again help provide low-cost energy for Americans. So today we have the lowest priced, most secure energy of any country in the world. That's going to change the course of this country for decades to come.
Mr. President, what? The Justice Department last night withdrew those subpoenas to the New York Times journalists who reported on Air Force One. Do you support these type of subpoenas to journalists or are you going to encourage the administration?
We're not after journalists, we're after leakers. We're after people that are cowards, people that are unpatriotic, people that are treasonous in many cases. And the way you find them is through the journalists, when the journalists probably know they shouldn't write, they shouldn't be giving information out like that particular information or others. We had a lot of, look at the Supreme Court where they leaked the opinion of Roe v. Wade early. That person should be found. And the way you find them is to tell the journalist, if it's something having to do with national security, you tell the journalist, who is it? And we have a long way to go with that case.
So you think it's appropriate to subpoena family members of journalists to find out information?
What's that again?
There were subpoenas to family members of the journalists too.
I don't know what's appropriate, what's not. We do it legally. Barack Hussein Obama did it all the time. He went after journalists and nobody said anything about it. He went after journalists. They said, who was the leaker? Who was the leaker? And if you don't give us the leaker, you go into jail. You know that. But when Obama does it, it's okay. When I do it, it's not. In many cases, that's the only way you're going to find out who a leaker is, and it has to do with national security. It's amazing. He did it many times, and nobody said anything about it. But when a Republican does it, when in particular Trump does it, everybody makes a big deal. Now, the way you find out is you say to the journalist, if it's national security, I would say, I really put it down to national security, not in all cases, but when you have somebody doing a national security leak or a leak of great importance, and you have somebody inside the walls of, let's say, the White House leaking, I think that's a national security concern. I think it's absolutely fine. And again, I'm not knocking Obama for doing it. I'm knocking the press for not even wanting to cover it. But Obama did that often. Other presidents have done it also. They go to the journalist or the reporter, they say, national security, who gave you this information? I'm okay with that.
Mr. President, did you authorize for Secretary Wright to sign the Saudi nuclear deal? If not, why did he sign it?
Well, we didn't talk about it, but it was always understood, and Chris knew, and Saudi Arabia knew, that if they didn't join the Abraham Accords, the deal's done. I'm not going to do the deal.
So then why did he sign it?
Senator John...
Because they understood that in order, it's subject to Congress and everything else, in order for that deal to go through, they had to sign into the Abraham Accords. And they've had great success. The Abraham Accords have been very successful, but in order to do that, we wanted them, we want them in. We think it's very good. We think the Abraham Accords bring peace in the Middle East, and now there's no longer an Iran factor. There's no longer Iran to worry about because they've been reduced in terms of their capability and power by manyfold.
Thank you. Senator John Thune has suggested that if the White House thinks that there are votes to pass the Save America Act, you should be picking up the phone.
Who are you with?
I'm with the Washington Examiner, sir. Could you be doing more to help that legislation pass?
Well, I do more. I got 3 congressmen, maybe 4, to settle, to send it to the Senate. We got the vote, as you know, in Congress. I got a call from Mike Johnson, who's fantastic. He's a fantastic speaker, one of the best I've ever seen, and I think he's going to go down as one of the best. He called. He said, we have problems with 3 or 4 people. Could you call them? I called them. Every one of them, after I called them, voted, and we got it passed up to the Senate. And I'd certainly be willing. I mean, he's got 4 or 5 people that are very difficult. A couple of them I put out of office, so I understand how it feels. I mean, they're doing the wrong thing. Look, who cannot approve voter ID? Who cannot approve proof of citizenship? Who cannot approve funding military when you're winning a war, and what are you supposed to do, stop fighting? We're winning a war by a lot. We're talking to them right now. They're willing to do things that they would have never done. Other presidents should have done this a long time ago. They say 47, but now it's actually 50 years. We've been saying 47 for 3 years. So it's 50 years. For 50 years, they should have done it. But who wouldn't approve voter ID? And that's photo ID. Who wouldn't approve proof of citizenship? And the Democrats don't want it because they cheat. But no Republican should put us in a position where they don't approve something like that. Yeah, please.
And then earlier today, you reposted Lara Loomer's interview with President Zelensky. What do you make of growing MAGA support for the war in war in Ukraine, sorry?
Well, I think they support what I support. You know, we just had a complete win in Arizona. The young gentleman was Harry Enton, I believe his name is. The pollster said Trump's 100% favorable. He gets everybody he endorses wins, which is pretty much true. Everyone I endorse just about wins. So there seems to be a natural bond between me and MAGA, but I'm the one that created MAGA, and I know what MAGA wants better than anybody else. You know, MAGA knows what MAGA wants, and MAGA's very happy. They want to see this done, and they're not going to be happy if it's not done. Make America great again. It's all about make America. You know, we started that a long time ago. But the concept of not approving voter ID or not approving proof of citizenship, and I won't even get into the ballot thing because, you know, we'll hold that maybe for another time. I think the two are 97, 98% issues. I think the ballots are 75% issue. But even at 75, they should do the ballots. The ballots are in many ways more important than even the first two. But they're a little more controversial because some people don't want to go and vote. But most great Americans want to go and vote. The corrupt ballot stuff that you saw that with the recent election in Los Angeles, the mayor's election, where the young guy, I don't know him, I came to the office recently after he lost, and they find all these ballots all of a sudden out of they came down from heaven, hundreds of thousands of ballots. Isn't it wonderful? He had no chance of losing, you know, Spencer Pratt. He had no chance. He was going to be in second place or first place. But I saw it happen. I said, oh, he's not going to win. He had to beat somebody. He was way up on a person that nobody ever heard of, a young woman who nobody ever heard of. She cried that night that she lost. But all of a sudden, time went by, and the election's long over. And I heard a report that Spencer Pratt's not doing that well. I said, what? She's going to lose. And he lost. It's crooked. We have crooked elections in some places.
But President Trump, today it was announced LeBron James has decided that he wants his next team to be the 76ers. Where do you stand on LeBron versus Michael Jordan as the best ever?
Well, Michael Jordan's a guy that's a friend of mine. Play golf with him. He's a really good guy. And I think LeBron is, maybe he's a racist, but maybe he doesn't like Trump. I don't know. But I only like people that like me. So I would say Michael Jordan all the way.
And another sports question. When Tiger Woods was about to get arrested, he called you. Now we know that when Bryson DeChambeau was having a dispute with a rules official this week, he wanted to call you. You got involved with a red card for the U.S. men's soccer team. Is there a precedent for somebody with your job becoming a fixer for the world's best athletes?
Well, it's not a fixer. You mean being a judge. Like, you know, I thought the Bryson call was a tough call. You know, I saw him walking around. I see a lot of people, they're walking around looking for their ball in weeds, okay? But I've been watching that, so, you know, I thought it was a tough call against him. I thought the red card was a very tough call. And it worked out brilliantly. Look, supposing that they didn't let him play and we lost, everyone would have been angry, right? The way it was that they lost with their best player. Now everyone's happy, including Belgium. Of course, they lost the next game, so they're not that happy either. But it worked out great. Johnny did a good job in making that call. All I did, I asked for a review. I thought that call was not a good call.
Mr.
President, your administration announced new tariffs today, and you did a post earlier also about a probe against the EU. Are you confident that the new tariffs and any tariffs that may come from this probe will withstand legal scrutiny?
Well, these tariffs have been up for a long time. They've been approved for years, thousands of cases they've been approved. Of course, with me, you know, it's different. I go up, I don't get treated fairly, but I've lived with it. And here we are in the Oval Office. I guess I somehow figured it out. But no, we put the tariffs on. They're very standard tariffs. The other way was easier. I thought the decision by the Supreme Court was not a good one. But we have many forms of tariffs, and all we did is go to B, follow the line B. Now, B is something that's been used many, many times for years and very standard. And we've used that, and we're taking in billions of dollars. And because of tariffs, largely, I think the election, November 5th, but largely because of tariffs, we have $19.2 trillion being invested in our country. And without tariffs, we wouldn't, would be in big trouble. Think of it. So the sleepy Joe Biden administration has less than $1 trillion being invested, much less for 4 years. We have $19.2 trillion for 1 year. There's never been anything like it in history. That's because of tariffs. So the Supreme Court said, please do it a different way. You have other ways to do it, and we did that.
Last month, you said Iran.
You told Axios.
Child labor was one of the things that USTR cited as a reason.
Well, it seems to be that that's what they decided. They go all over the world and they look and they examine and they see and they see. And child labor was one of the things that one of the reasons, and they had a big problem with that. Yeah.
You told Axios that you were considering a, quote, massive attack on Iran. What is the tipping point for you to make the decision?
Well, I can't tell you that. Right now we're talking to them, so, maybe there won't be a tipping point, and maybe there will. And we're ready to go. Look, we're locked and loaded. We're ready to go, but we're talking to them. So maybe there will be, maybe there won't be a tipping point.
But at what point with Iran do you think they're going to cry uncle and actually come to the table?
Well, maybe they will cry uncle, or maybe they'll just give up, or maybe they'll just go into a cave and hide. They have caves very deep in the ground, and they can hide. They get shaken up pretty good, but they can hide. But we've taken out their first level of leadership. We've then taken out their second level of leadership. We've taken out some of the third level, and we're negotiating with the rest. And we'll see how it all works. And right now we are talking to them seriously, but I've talked to them before, and they don't seem to be able to get there. Maybe now they will. But, look, if I thought they were anywhere near getting a nuclear weapon, if I wasn't elected, Israel would, in my opinion, not be around anymore. They would have been hit by a nuclear weapon. And that includes right at the beginning with Barack Hussein Obama's nuclear deal that was so bad with Iran. That was a road to a nuclear weapon. And maybe even more so, the B-2 bombers. If that plane right there, that beautiful plane, the wing, it carries the largest bombs in the world. If that bomb didn't go over their 17-hour flight, and it hit every one of those bombs, hit their target, and the target was an air shaft at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's hard to believe, right? Going at very tremendous speeds. Every one of them hit and blew it to hell. If that didn't happen, they would have had a nuclear weapon, and there would be no Israel. If I wasn't here, if I wasn't president, there would be no Israel, and there probably would be no Middle East. And you saw that when they shockingly started shooting at everybody all over the Middle East. If they had a nuclear weapon, they would have used that. There might not be a Middle East as we know it today, but there definitely, in my opinion, there would not have been an Israel. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Well, that was wide-ranging, and it'd be hard for me to go and recap every bit of that. But, of course, touching on the war, the weird thing was it sounded like Peter Doocy bringing in the LeBron James question. And I thought, and AJ and I were talking, I was talking to AJ anyway in his ear during that break, it sounded like he was teeing up sort of a Caitlin Clark question about Trump picking up the phone during sports controversies. But he didn't go there. He went to a bunch of other weird stuff. What an odd question. With everything going on in the world and us really being at a time of war where there might be a major expansion. We've had our 13th night of bombing as of today, and could be a major sort of what people are calling a decapitation run of the American military into Iran. And in the middle of all that, Peter Doocy decides to ask about LeBron James' status as a Hall of Famer. I don't know. How stupid. But you know what's funny is a lot of folks can explain more about the NBA than they can Iran anyway, so maybe he's just being relational. I don't know. So there's Trump. That should be the last time we hear from him today, as he'll go off to his weekend doing the White House Correspondents' Dinner this weekend. It's a redo. He had planned to do a stem-winding roast of the media. It's his first time to attend, and we all know that maniac leftist decided to storm the place, and lucky for all of us, he was incompetent, and the officials there were able to get him under control. I'll never forget how dramatic that was that weekend. So now they're doing their redo, and that's going to be Trump's big media hit this weekend. Man, we've still got a long way to go, and we're about a couple of hours out from some really heavy thunderstorms. I'll go back over all that when we get back here. Leland Live, Talk 99.5. Y'all stay tuned. 545-9950 if you want to jump on the radio and talk about any of these things. We'll be right back. Leland Live. Stay tuned.